Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial, and our mission here on the podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building sellable or transferable business value, and then for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's transferable, and we want to help you exit on your own terms and conditions. And again today, before we get into the conversation, we again here in January want to make a couple of planning recommendations for 2025 as it gets started. If you haven't yet listened to the last episode of 2024, an exit planning checklist for 2025, it would provide you with a high-level framework as to what to focus on. You could also find a blog post on ExitReadiness.com with that checklist. We suggest that, and also consider reaching out to us for a copy of our Exit Routes ebook, which describes the pros and cons of all the potential exit routes. And you can reach us at email@exitreadiness.com, and we can get that to you. Now, for today's conversation, there are many reasons a sale to an external buyer can go wrong or fail. And if you've listened to us for any period of time, you've probably tuned into an episode where we've talked about that. And it's something we regularly talk about. With a mission to help you realize a successful exit, we want to help you gain understanding as to these pitfalls and then help you know how to plan well in advance. And today's guest is going to highlight what she considers to be the three main reasons that sales fail. Our topic today is the three main reasons business sales fail and how to avoid them. And our guest today is Christine Nicholson. Christine's a multi-award winning professional business mentor. She's authored 4 business books. She's a regular keynote speaker on succession and exit planning. She's worked with many businesses over the last 30 years in all sectors, including taking one from bankruptcy to an 8-figure exit in 18 months. And her latest book, How to Successfully Sell Your Business, helps business owners get their business and themselves ready, exit readiness, for the hardest part of the entrepreneur journey, leaving their business in the hands of others. And she's coming to us today from the United Kingdom. That's where she's based. And so, Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, and thank you for having me as a guest. I listened to many of your past guests, and I'm quite privileged to be adding to this body of work.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I think Walter's going to get us started here with the first question.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Walter.
So let me ask you, did your interest in helping people sell their businesses just stem from your large experience in selling your own businesses, or was there some other motivation?
No, there were three motivations. One was when I was small, I saw an uncle of mine, my favorite uncle, set up in business, didn't know what he was doing, technically brilliant, but running the business, not so good. And he ended up putting his business into liquidation. And it had a profound effect on me, seeing this big personality have this failure. And he was never really the same again. And then you roll forward about 25 years. And my first job as a qualified accountant was working in a business where 5th generation of family didn't want to get into the business. So the 4th generation decided, let's have an exit strategy. And I cut my teeth on a massive exit project where we built to sell, we sold, we packaged things up together, we put things into liquidation, we let employees buy one of the sections out. There was over 40 different companies, and it was like a big mess that worked really well operationally. But when it came to splitting it all out to find the ideal buyers, it was like doing a reverse jigsaw puzzle. And
Right.
it was, it just put me into an environment as an accountant that I thought, wow, this is what I want to be doing, because it has real impact. And then when that all of those businesses were sold, I was literally the last employee. So I switched off the lights, locked up the old office, and I wrote my own redundancy check. So my termination and severance check, I actually wrote it myself. And then I used that to start my first, what I call grown-up business. And I started that business with the end in mind. So I went on to sell a couple of my own businesses, and then went on to be pulled into helping others sell theirs, and it's just never stopped. So there's never been a plan B, by the way, but it just hasn't stopped.
So Christine, then let's dive into what our topic today, and that is the three main reasons. So you've got a lot of experience, 30 years of experience working with businesses, and the experience that you just relayed a second ago. What are these? What's number one? Or start however you want to, but what are in your view, what are the top three reasons that business transactions fail?
Okay, I'm going to do these in the order that I think people need to hear them, not necessarily in the order that possibly might make sense. But number one, absolutely, is the business owner reliance. The more your business needs you, the less it is worth. It's a really simple formula. And if the business can't operate without you, or the perception that you are in control, because sometimes it isn't about the activity. So the owner is always the problem when it comes to the business failing to sell. The second one is unrealistic valuations. So the business owners will come to me and they'll go, I've put my sweat, stress, and sacrifice into this business, and it's got to be worth $30 million. And we don't know where 30 million comes from, but 5 and 30 million are the two magic numbers. And but then when you actually value it from the perspective of a buyer who doesn't care about the sweat and they haven't seen the sacrifice, but they do see the stress, and automatically that valuation is significantly lower. But the real biggie, and I think it's the one that is almost misunderstood, is the complete lack of preparation for due diligence. Because unless you've sold a business, you actually don't know what due diligence is in reality. And so therefore you might be creating this image in your head that it's going to be quick and it's going to be easy, and it's just paperwork, isn't it? And then you sit down with the buyer when they start firing questions at you that can be perceived as being a criticism of your baby. And that's very difficult to not react in a negative way. I mean, nobody wants to be told their baby's ugly, or be hinted at that might be the case. So due diligence is usually very emotional, very draining, and very time consuming. And if you don't prepare, it's also going to cost you a bucket load of money. So those are the three.
So Christine, let me ask you, because Pat and I have also seen the issues with due diligence, and we really encourage sellers to go through a seller side due diligence process before they even put the company on the market. Do you insist on that, or do you encourage that also?
Absolutely. When I start working with clients, it's the first thing that we do, because they need to know what they're working with. And sellers are often not buyers, and they've often never bought a business. And it's not their fault that they don't know this process, because let's face it, there are plenty of advisors out there that make a lot of money out of providing these services. But it's a complete waste, because, well, okay, it's not a complete waste, but the owner is the best placed person to handle all of the information requirements. They just need to handle it in a totally unemotive way. And here's the key thing. You can do this as a business owner by just spending 15 minutes to an hour a week. And you would just be streets ahead and save literally thousands of dollars in wasted time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we definitely agree with that.
Yeah, no question. And actually, you know, each one of the three things that you've mentioned, we would not disagree with you or argue with you on any one of those points as being the three main reasons. We might be able to make a case for one or two others to be in there, but we're not going to argue against those three for sure. And one thing that occurs to me about all three of them, and you mentioned this, is that there's an emotional piece to the whole thing. You know, changing the role of the owner, becoming less central, particularly if they're the founder. And as you said earlier, you know, it's their baby. They started out with a tool belt and a truck or a computer in their basement or whatever they did. And now here they are 5, 10, 15, even 30, 35 years later. So it's their baby. So to become less central, you got to change your role, right? You got to delegate, and you got to just change who you are somewhat. And that there's an emotional piece to that. And then, of course, with the valuation, you're right. We like to say that meaningful planning requires accurate data, and that starts with evaluation. And oftentimes, most often, the business isn't as valuable or sellable as the owner. And so there's an emotional thing there. And then the third thing of due diligence and just looking under the hood completely and totally. There's all kinds of, so with the work that we do and the work that you do, and tell me what you think about this. Tell us what you think. There's an emotional, big emotional piece, as we've said, but part of our job is to help them, is to shepherd them through almost the emotional piece, and to be with them in all the emotional stuff as well as the technical. But and that was not well articulated, but you'll probably articulate it better here in a second. But what do you think about that?
Well, it's for people like us who work right alongside the business owner and have been business owners ourselves, then it's much easier to empathize. And it's, you know, business owners need people like us because of that empathy piece. You know, they need someone who's walked in their shoes, who's felt their pain, who's laid on the bed of nails. And the problem with some advisors is they've never been through it themselves. They're an external thing. So they've applied their learning to the business owner in a completely unemotional way. And of course, that doesn't help the business owner not have his emotional breakdown. And so the business owner then can't articulate some of the frustrations that they feel, which means they then don't communicate effectively with their advisor, and therefore they don't get the best result. Of course, the quid pro quo is the advisor then either doesn't get the sale and doesn't get the commission, or gets less because the price starts getting chipped. And the sad thing is that due diligence it takes time. It takes money. It is emotional. We just have to accept that it is. But the mistake that most business owners make, and most advisors don't tell them, is you don't have to do it alone. You know, it's a team effort. But most business owners think that keeping their exit quiet and secret from everyone else means that they have to do it on their own. And therefore, one of the key main reasons these things fail is because they are isolated. But you get your team in and you get your team to do the work and you explain to them what's going to happen. Are you risking some people leaving? Probably. But you know what? They were probably the people that you needed to get out of the business in the first place. The ones who will be really excited are the ones who can see themselves in the future of that business when the business owner isn't there. I heard something this week that was just, I wish I'd been able to articulate this for the last 20 years. But this guy basically said, we're a business, not a family. And somebody tried to argue with him and he said, no. We're a team in this business. And for this business to be high performing, we have to be a high performing team. And I don't know about you, but most families are dysfunctional and they don't perform very highly. So, and you only need to watch Succession to see that.
Yeah, and buyers, they don't want to buy families, really, do they? They want to buy operating businesses that are going to be good investments, and that's one of the things that we regularly try to get across to owners. Uh, yeah, so in regard to we we think that our first phase of helping a client, of discovering what their goals and objectives are, and really painting the picture for these three things that you've mentioned, along with other key factors in planning a successful exit, is really important to help them to understand what they're in for. If indeed they're going to become less central, what it's going to take in regard to effort, time, changing the role, so on and so forth. Same thing with building the value of the business. Same thing with the due diligence process. Because if they're clear on all those things from the very beginning, it may change their, we're agnostic as to what exit route they choose. We want them to choose the one that's going to achieve their goals, all of their goals. And so they may decide, you know what, I'm just tired and I don't want to go through all of that. And I have enough money outside of the business, and I certainly will if I stay here for a couple more years. And so I don't want to put the time and the finances into the business. And so I am going to, in the next 3 years, liquidate and get whatever I can because I'll accomplish all my goals. And frankly, we've had that conversation with a number of owners because we're all about getting done for them what they want to get done. What are your thoughts on that?
What really upsets me is that often liquidation is seen as a failure. It's not. It's a failure if you're pushed into it from a compulsory perspective. And I don't use the F word lightly in that perspective. It's going to be perceived and feel like a failure. But actively choosing that as a choice, well, that's a success to my book because you've made a positive choice. And usually if you get the right tax advice, etc., it can actually be very rewarding for you. But it's not a choice that makes advisors any money. So if you think about the bulk of the exit advisors out there, they're earning commission on the sale. And as I said to one of my clients, they were saying, we're being bombarded with people who keep saying, we can sell your business. We've got a queue of buyers out there. And, but, we don't want to sell to, anonymous investors, and we don't want to sell to competitors. So we explored the choices and all of a sudden it's like, nobody's told us about these other options that we have. And as it happens, they chose to go down the employee ownership route. But as we were talking about the various options, and I said, look, somebody's going to make money out of selling your business. And ultimately, shouldn't it just be you that makes the most money? And they were like, oh yeah, we never thought of it like that. So one of the first things I always do with my clients is we are going to go through a process where you are going to be forced to have a very large chunk of complete selfishness about what your life is going to look like when you're not in this business. So let's get down and dirty with what that can look like, because what we'll do is backwards engineer how we get you there. And it might not be selling to your competitors that you've spent the last 20 years differentiating yourself from, or selling to PE or venture capital money, which is often seen as very unpalatable.
Yeah, Christine, Pat and I definitely agree with everything you're saying, and we see it all the time. But let me kind of turn things around a little bit. So we've talked about 3 reasons why selling a business sometimes doesn't work. So what can be done to avoid it? And you're not allowed to say, well, you just start really early, even though we all know that's probably the number one secret. We need something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a given. You got to
No,
start early.
I hear you. I actually think for all 3 things, the biggest impact to avoiding a sale failure is, and it is really one thing, and that's educating yourself as the business owner about what the journey is, particularly over your particular type of exit. So first of all, find out what type of exit suits you, and then actually look at what that whole journey is. No athlete goes to a running track and just runs. They understand how many times they're going to have to run round. They understand whether they're a hurdler or not a hurdler. They understand the obstacles because they understand every inch of the race. And if I can advise business owners to do one thing, it's educate yourself on the journey. Because then even if you're not prepared, at least you know what's coming. And some people are very much more equipped to react, but it's so much easier if you lean into leading, because leaders get what they want by design. People who react get the outcome of that particular reaction on that particular day. So it's just education.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And Christine, you've provided, thank you for joining us today and increasing the understanding and education and knowledge of our listeners today. It's very helpful. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you as you're closing out the day over there in the UK. And we want to ask you, as we're closing, is there anything that you'd like to promote today? Your latest book or something else?
I had to lean forward to get it. So actually, my book, which is going to come up as a mirror, How to Successfully Sell Your Business, actually only got launched last week. So and I'm really proud of it. We did a launch, and I sold out of my first print run. So I'm actually waiting for the next print run to come through. And it is literally everything. So what I said about how to avoid failure, the number one thing, educate yourself. This is it. This is how to educate yourself. And you can find all of that on my website. But my passion is making sure that the transfer of wealth from one generation to another is not diminished by multiple sale failures. We want the next generation to be richer. This is how we do it.
And Christine, if a listener wants to reach out to you, contact you, how could they do that?
Yeah, my website is christinenicholson.co.uk. Don't worry about the .co.uk. I am international, so I have clients from Singapore right the way through to the west coast of California, and everything that I talk about is nation agnostic. So because I don't advise on tax, but I do have the best tax advisors in my contact list. And when I qualified as an accountant, oh my goodness me, tax was the bane of my life. So the fact that I can do this and have these brilliant people who can do all the things I don't want to do is great. So.
Excellent. In closing, listeners, let us again just strongly encourage you to begin planning as soon as possible and to get educated. That's a key message from today. Educate yourself on the journey ahead. And we, the three of us, would agree you're going to need help with that. So get the right help, and because it's going to take longer than you think. It always does. If you want help in planning for life after the business or your exit or building sellable, transferable value, you can contact us, Walter and I, and our firm at email at ExitReadiness.com or by phone at 301-859-0860. And please, if you've benefited from today's episode, please like and share it on social media. We'd really appreciate that. Until next time on the Exit Readiness podcast, this is Pat Ennis and Walter Dial signing off.